Hello everybody, I'm Steve Fleming. Welcome to my studio. In today's demonstration we're going to be talking about using brushwork in a watercolor. The painting over here is the painting that we're going to be talking about. I'm going to be using a number 16 round for pretty much the entire painting, and so we're going to get on with it. Thanks for watching. And so I'm going to put up a little bit of a nice cool wash using cobalt violet, cobalt blue. Get rid of a little of the water. I'm going to use this number 16 round for pretty much the whole painting. Now, I'm a big believer in round brushes. I grew up using pretty much flat brushes. I use them not half as much as I used to. I use them a lot less. I like the round brush because it gives me a whole lot of range of possibilities of marks. Now I'm going to take a damp paper towel and I'm going to pull a little bit of light out of the sky. Damp. Your paper towel becomes a stencil, and so as you do this you want to keep moving your paper towel away from the dirty spot where you've picked up the paint, because if you turn that onto the paper it's going to act as a stencil and it's not going to quite give you what you want. I'll lift a little of the light off of this building, and there you have it. So I'm going to leave this area like this temporarily. I'm going to go down here and I'm going to paint the foreground. The reason I'm going to paint the foreground is because it's a little bit damper than I was expecting. And so I'll go ahead and just paint the foreground using this new color, New Gamboge from Winsor Newton. Winsor Newton changed the color, and it used to be this wonderful golden yellow, kind of like Indian yellow, but now they've got this new color, and it's really, I don't know, it's like a quinacridone gold color. I have a lot of trouble using it, but it's the only one I have at the moment. This is basically, I'm just brushing the color across the surface. I'm adding a little of the color of the sky down into the yellow, giving it some sort of a unified effect. Adding a little bit of orange. You have a little bit of this white piece coming in from low in the painting, coming up, and it's going to move across the front of these buildings. This is going to be in shadow, this is going to be a cast shadow, and I'm going to use that little white piece of paper to move us into the painting. When you're putting your paint down, try to get the paint to go in the angle of the object you're painting. These are big weeds, and so I'm going to pull the brush like this. I'm not going to paint it with the tip of my brush going like this because it's going to take too long to cover the paper. Using a little olive green, kind of a deathly color, but you can put it on top of this, and as long as you do it with a nice light stroke, it should be okay. Splatter a little bit here on this. I'm using a flat brush now. I'm going to move back to the round in a second. These are some pretty big weeds. Now, there are weeds. Now I'm going to take this little scraper I have, which is a flat scraper used for Teflon pans, and I'm just going to pull out some lights, get a little bit of overstated lights in these weeds. It just gives them a little bit of movement. It's not representational of any specific type of weed, it's just creating a little bit of interest. Now I'm going to mix up a dark green. And I'm going to use ultramarine blue and this New Gamboge color. And I'm going to try to rough brush this with this 16 brush, this 16 round. Hopefully I'll get a nice feeling of edge by varying my brush marks, and I get a lot of texture sitting up against the sky. Remember when you're painting to use all the edges of your brush, not just the little point. The point of your brush, if you use it all the time, you'll wear the point off. So if you use the side of your brush, you're getting a lot more mileage out of the brush, you're getting much more interesting brushwork. Brushwork is something you really should strive for. It is one of the most important things you can do in watercolor, because we don't have quite the flexibility that you have with oils or with acrylics. We don't really have the opportunity to cover the brush marks as successfully as you can with some of the more opaque mediums, so the brush marks you use are going to show up. So I think sometimes what you want to do is make sure you're really using your brush, creating nice, interesting passages, and your painting will enliven because of that. And you also will get another nice byproduct, which is you don't wear your brushes out so fast. So what I'm looking for is a feeling of the trees. I'm not looking for any specific little Christmas tree shape. Add a little bit of phthalo green for dark. Watch that color. That one could become the kiss of death. Maybe it makes a really nice dark tone. Do that. Use the side of your brush again. Pull up a little bit of darks in this. And where you're over next to the center of the painting, try to get some really nice brushwork there. That's when I'll really dance the brush across the paper, trying to get a nice feeling of the individual little pieces. But that's pretty much the only place I'm going to show the sort of texture of the tree leaves and such things as that. And I'm going to take this little scrape, but this is not a scraper actually, this is a knife, and I'm going to pull this up and just pull a few little pieces of tree trunk. So that's as much as I'm going to do with the trees. Now I have these rocks, I have this building, I have the light coming from here. I'm going to paint this building, I'm going to cut around these rocks, and then I'm going to put a little bit of shadow on the rocks, and they're going to be done. We're going back to the round brush. I'm going to take cobalt violet, a little cobalt blue. I'm going to make sure that it's not purple. Add a little bit of burnt sienna. Add a little bit of ultramarine blue. And a little bit of that. A little raw sienna. See what we have. A little bit more brown. When I say brown, I mean burnt sienna. That's not bad. Pull this over like this. Now I'll fix this color in a second with a little bit of warm color, which is raw sienna. Put a little bit of warmth on it just so it has a little bit of bounce, like the bounce is coming up from the ground, popping up. That's a cast shadow that's being cast by the eave. This is going to be a form shadow on this side. It's going to have a little bit of warmth in it, although I'm going to paint it to start off with this cool tone. I'm going to come back and drop a little bit of raw sienna on it, and hopefully that won't become a proverbial train wreck. You never know. So there's the color. It's basically this color. Now what I'm going to do is take raw sienna, pretty sure that's what it is, and just lightly flood it across this and let it bleed down a little bit. And that should, with this angle, run down, create a nice little feeling that this is warmer, this is cooler. Gives me a nice little feeling of reflected light. Yeah, it's pretty good. And that's kind of a brown color. Wasn't exactly what I wanted, so rule number one, if you mix a color and don't like it, don't use it. So what I did was I have it. I'm going to go ahead and use it, but I'm going to change it. So at the bottom of the color, instead of it just being brown at the top, I added a little bit of cadmium scarlet. And I think it made it a little bit better. This is the shadow off of this eave coming this way. I'm going to add a little bit of raw sienna to this. There's a little bit. There's a little cast shadow on the ground. Then this time, instead of using the yellow, what I'm going to do is take the side of this brush and just pull a little bit of the light off of it, lighten it up like that. I could also do the same thing here, which lightens this side up just a little bit, so we guarantee that this side of the building is a little bit lighter than this. The light's coming from here. All right. This is still going to be a dark shadow. This is going to be a little cadmium scarlet. I'm actually going to go with this cadmium scarlet color and leave it. I'm going to put that in here. And I'm going to cast a shadow on the ground. Light's coming from here. Shadows out here like this. And I'm going to come back into this, and I'm going to do exactly what I did over here by adding in some darks while it's damp. You can add dark pigment and more pigment to damp areas as long as you control the amount of water on your brush. One of the ways to do that is to not add a lot of water to your brush. The other way to do it is to flick your brush into a trash can, which is one of my preferred methods. But you have to make sure that you have a trash can that actually will catch the marks. Catch the splatter, or else your significant other will be going, "What are you doing? How come you're putting all those marks all over our rug?" And you could just sort of say, "I don't know how it happened," or you can get yourself a nice square trash can and hope that'll help. So this, I think, is helping a lot. A little bit of this as a little bit of texture on this hill. And again, I am really not trying to paint anything that I've seen specifically. I'm thinking about that value pattern I showed you at the start, and I'm just trying to create the impression of this landscape. And now with this area up here now, I feel like this is becoming the center of interest, but when it was that sort of funky green color, I don't think it really was. But now I'm going to take my knife again, and I'll pull a little light out of this. A little light out of this, a little light out of this. So I'm going to change brushes and go from this 16 and move to this round, which is a number 12. When I paint these pieces on this building, I'm going to use pretty much the shadow colors. This will be kind of a reddish tone. I'm going to use a reddish tone with a little bit of burnt sienna, a little bit of blue. I'm just going to make it a little bit darker. I think it's okay. Put in a little bit of that. Don't get these things too dark. If you get them too dark, it will eat your painting. And then you won't be happy. And you're going to wonder, how did that happen? It happened because you made everything too dark. And so that sort of gives me a little bit of interest there. Now I'm going to take a little bit of a violet tone, add a little bit of burnt sienna to it, a little raw sienna to it, a little blue, flick my brush, and put in a few little details here. Just enough to say that these are doors and windows, and this is a little hole. Put in a little bit of dark inside that door. A little bit of dark here, a little bit of dark there. What I'm trying to do now is to take the power away from this by adding in enough little sparkly places inside these parts on this painting to make the emphasis go from here to over here. So this is